Hey guys, we've got a great show lined up for you. Blackmagic Design announced a whole host of new products for live production. But first, let's find out what happened in the world of media.
Oh, hey, speaking of magic, I happen to have a couple of magic tricks lined up for you guys, and
No, not that kind of media. It's time to start the show. This is Ready Take Live. Welcome back to Ready Take Live, where we give you the latest in tech news and entertainment centered around live video. We help you stay up to date on what's happening and help you bridge the gap between big budget broadcast and live social streaming. We do the show live every Friday from LiveX Studios in Midtown Manhattan, just west of Times Square. Get notified each week by subscribing to @LiveX Production, and we'll be answering your questions and comments with some help from our friends at Clearcaster. So tweet at us using LiveX Production or the hashtag ReadyTakeLive, and we can feature your tweets live on air with social graphics platform Tagboard. For the best viewing experience, switch over to our YouTube page to watch live in 4K. Okay, now, normally we will kick off each episode with what's going on in the world of live media, but this week we have a lot lined up for you, so let's just hit the big three. Blackmagic Design made the biggest news this week when they announced a host of new products targeted at gaining more market share in live production. From sports to events to entertainment, Blackmagic is certainly trying to take over the market. But how does it stack up? Do they make a compelling case? Well, we're going to find out. But first, I wanted to talk about Grass Valley taking over Snell Advanced Media. Belden announced that it has completed its acquisition of Snell Advanced Media, or SAM, and SAM will now become rebranded under the Grass Valley name. The move makes sense for UK manufacturer, as they've struggled to gain market share in the US, partly due to a lack of regional support staff, but Grass Valley gains more market penetration in the EMEA market, especially in sports, and both benefit from the size and structure of their large parent company, Belden. Both SAM and Grass Valley are heavy hitters in the industry, and now Grass Valley becomes the largest media technology provider in the switcher market. Aubrey and Nick, are you excited for this move? And also, what's going on with SpaceX and the Falcon Heavy?
Hey! So I want to talk about the Falcon Heavy launch that happened this week, guys. So I'm sure you guys all saw about it. They launched a rocket into space, guys. It was pretty cool. They had a guy in a car that is now circling the planet. But I think what the coolest part about this was the stream that actually happened. So on the stream, you can see they had a bar at the very bottom that has like a timeline of when things were going to happen. And it was like, I mean, I hate to make the correlation, but I'm going to do it anyways. Like Domino's Pizza Tracker. You know when your pizza's going to arrive because you've got your timeline. So that's what I was kind of thinking as I was watching it, that I was like, this is a really cool development that SpaceX stole from Domino's. But no, it was a very cool stream. People were tweeting about it all over. Really cool touches that they made to all of their equipment. And then, the audio, though, was funny to me. Elon Musk, obviously. Audio is funny to me because they had all this, like, ambient noise of people cheering as it was launching and all this stuff. But you didn't see those people until 8 minutes into the video. So I was watching it, and I was like, who are these people, and where are they coming from?
yeah, I was really confused by that also. I thought it was kind of unfortunate that you couldn't. They fed in the sound of the, there was an announcer, I think, and there was also mission control, which you could hear, but you could barely hear them over the sound of the crowds, which sounded like camera mics to me. But
yeah, I agree. But the stream overall, I thought they did an incredible job. And it's cool to think that there's a guy driving a car in space. The best tweet, I think, though, goes out to Daniel. Am I alone in thinking that if Elon Musk had killed someone, this is a perfect way to get rid of the body? So that was that was a good twist on events. But yeah, I thought obviously it's a huge one small step
One
for
small
man,
step, yep.
one giant leap for mankind. There's also rumors that obviously that NASA was given the opportunity to be a part of the launch, and that this car was only the backup plan, and NASA turned them down. So enter the Tesla. Yeah, the stream overall was really cool. Obviously, the audio, there were some weird audio things, but they had the 3 box that they used a lot. That was a cool way to tell the story, to show the boosters separately. Yeah, I'm like, it was cool, guys.
It was
and
awesome.
You have
when
to go check it out.
When they came back down, when the boosters landed perfectly side by side, it was pretty amazing stuff. So yeah, that's what happened with the SpaceX Falcon Heavy. Coming up, we're going to talk a lot about ATEM and the new URSA broadcast lineup. But first, let's take a look back at the last big announcement from Blackmagic Design and check out this clip from an unboxing we did of the ATEM Television Studio Pro HD. Hey guys, Rob Boehnert, producer at LiveX here, and today I've got the ATEM Television Studio Pro HD. HDMI inputs for 1 through 4, 5 through 8 are your SDI inputs with SDI outputs on 5 through 8. You have 1 upstream key, and then you have 2 downstream keys. Other than that, pretty standard across the top here. You have your main sources on the bottom, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, preview program. And then you have your shift sources up here. It's pretty straightforward, no nonsense, hardware switcher, ready to go out in the field, very durable. I highly recommend getting your hands on one of these if you're in the market. Fully contained in 1 frame. This is a huge improvement over what they've had in the past. And when we saw it at NAB, we were one of the first ones to pre-order it, and we just got it in this week. Welcome back to Ready Take Live. I'm Rob Boehnert, and this week we dive deep into the new live production offerings from Blackmagic Design. This is RTL In Depth, and we post my notes and reference materials to the LiveX producer blog each week, so be sure to read the recap there. As always, let me know in the comments or on Twitter if you have any questions. In a YouTube live stream last week, Blackmagic CEO Grant Petty announced a host of new products to continue their push for the live market share. They released a new 2/3-inch broadcast version of the URSA Mini Pro with a B4 mount to allow traditional broadcast lenses to be used with the 4K sensor. He also announced a SMPTE fiber back for large venues or anyone in sports or broadcasting with existing SMPTE fiber cables, looking to upgrade their facility to 4K Ultra HD production.
But cameras weren't the only announcement in the 2-hour live stream. Grant Petty also unveiled a new ATEM 1ME Advanced panel, designed as kind of a big brother to the ATEM Television Studio that came out last year. The new panel can be used to control any ATEM, including the brand new 4ME 4K production studio frame. Oh, sorry guys. Nope. There we go. Sorry, guys. The 2ME 4K frame and panel we use here in the studio also benefit from the free upgrade, which turns any existing 2ME production switcher into a 4ME switcher. What? That's insane. So this update also enables 4 upstream keyers per ME for a total of 16 keyers, each containing the all-new advanced chroma keying color science. That's a big upgrade over their old chroma keying calibration.
But even before this announcement, I've been receiving a lot of questions about the big boy ATEM 4K switcher we use and the URSA Mini Pros we have here in the studio. So that's where we'll start. But first, I know many of you watching this on Facebook Live, and we wanted to let you know another secret from our friends at Wowza, where we reviewed the Clearcaster encoder that we use for Facebook Live. Stick around for more on the new ATEM Live lineup, and we'll be right back on Ready Take Live. The Wowza Clearcaster is the first ever encoder made in partnership with Facebook for Facebook Live. Why this is important is because everyone has had that moment where they're not sure whether they're live on Facebook yet. So they have a countdown clock that lets the talent know exactly when they're live on Facebook. We were watching, I have a monitor in front of me that is giving me a countdown from 15 seconds all the way to 1. Our director in the back, Nick McCosey, was watching the same view, the talent view, so that he knew when to drop slate and come to me and cue me to start talking. The best part about it is also what I'm seeing right in front of me is the talent view where I'm seeing your questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. And for the first time, I'm actually seeing it in front of me here, courtesy of the Wowza Clearcaster, which wins our Best Encoder of 2017 award. This is truly the most innovative thing to happen in live encoding. Huge thanks to Wowza for their Clearcaster encoder that we use for Facebook Live. It's really an amazing product. You should check that out as well. We have an unboxing video. And for Ready Take Live, I'm Rob Baynard, wishing you the best of luck on your next live production. Take care, guys. Such a cool product, and thanks to Wowza for your support of Ready Take Live. Let's get back into it. Remember, I have that Clearcaster talent view right in front of me, and we'll see your questions as they come in. So let's go. We already talked a little about the new products that Grant Petty announced last week, but I wanted to spend some time to meditate and review on how this would fit into our workflow here at LiveX. We were one of the first in the country to go all in on building an all 12G SDI 4K live studio production capable of live streaming and broadcasting 4K 60p resolution. It was a dream of ours for a few years to go live in 4K, and thanks to going in a little too early on some of the Blackmagic products, we bet that we could build it for less than half the cost of a traditional broadcast facility. As any good studio integrator knows, we started by choosing a switcher that would give us the functionality to push the boundaries and do 4K live broadcasts. Since IP video protocols can still be often compressed and still at old guard broadcast equipment price points, a more comfortable facility with, sure, we use Dante to move around audio, but video over IP is still ridiculously overpriced and super unreliable in terms of day-to-day live production. If it's not that, then it's probably just super low quality. But enough about that. Let's talk ATEM. The ATEM 2ME Broadcast Studio 4K switcher was a 20-input 12G hardware switcher capable of 4K 60p. The frame was about $6,000 and the big panel was about $15,000. The 2ME panel was released several years earlier, and a lot of people thought that the ATEM customer base, it was just way too overpriced of a controller for them. But this thing was way ahead of its time. Unlike some of its bigger, more expensive competitors at Ross, Sony, and Panasonic, the ATEM 2ME panel had RGB LED scribble strips and buttons that could be renamed and colored that makes sitting at the panel a breeze for any operator. Being able to give custom names to sources that show up above each button and change those colors was really a huge advancement over a lot of broadcast switchers at the time. Since then, all the big boys have added these features, but the ATEM 2ME panel was really one of the first. Sure, it's around $20,000 all in, but it's nearly half the cost of its nearest competitor, and you could forget about 4K with those. Those are just HD switchers.
The 2ME has been super reliable for us, and it can run its control software on a pretty lightweight computer because all the processing is done inside the frame itself, like any other hardware-based switcher. Having only 2 upstream keys and 2 downstream keys per ME made adding in LiveFX, our custom graphics system, a bit limiting. That is feeding on one DSK and the other one has our Ready Take Live bug. Thankfully, the Super Source feature allowed us to add 2 and 4 boxes for different people you see on the show, so that basically acted like our additional ME.
Getting back to the new stuff, what makes this so cool is that I couldn't believe my ears when I heard Grant Petty at Blackmagic Design say that they've upgraded their existing 2ME to a 4ME via nothing more than a firmware update. I was actually on another production while the announcement was going on, and I was kind of half listening and half cutting another show. And you know, it's a trick that all live TDs have where we can listen to about 5 conversations at once and still keep it all flowing. I quickly posted in our Slack channel and asked someone back at the office to try and update our panel and frame to see if it worked. When I walked in the door later that afternoon, our director Aubrey was sitting at the switcher just finishing the firmware updates. And what do you know? The panel now said the frame was a 4ME switcher. We dug deeper and found that it also unlocked more keys, giving us 4 keys per ME for a total of 16 upstream keys. This was incredible. That kind of functionality combined with 20 12G SDI inputs makes this thing at around $20,000 operate like an over $100,000 switcher from any traditional broadcast company. Sony. So our little investment looked pretty brilliant when this came out last week. We decided to immediately buy the new 4ME 4K ATEM frame and put it in our studio and pull the 2ME that is now a 4ME for use in one of our field fly packs.
But that's not all. Blackmagic also released the ATEM 1ME Advanced panel. It has a 1.5 stripe setup. It can control the 1ME Production Studio 4K, 2ME, and now the 4ME frame that we are using both in the field and in this studio. We ordered one of those immediately to put in our fly packs. Check this out.
All right, so it really is the perfect solution for a small fly pack, where you need to slim down your setup for a live event or other type of field work. This panel is a little narrower than the width of a rack, so you can mount it on a shelf and put it inside the top of a rack, with the 4ME frame right underneath it, and even fit a 40x40 12G router and 4 12G hyperdecks for ATEM remote control, auto roll of graphics and playback, anything you need to do as far as VTR capabilities. That feature used to be pretty spotty on the old ATEM and hyperdeck interactions, but Blackmagic Design has fully worked it out with the new 12G hyperdecks, and they allow you to remotely auto-roll VTR capability from the hyperdeck studios. Keep in mind that with the 1ME, you can control 2 hyperdecks, but with the 2ME and the 4ME now, you can control up to 4 hyperdecks for VTR or graphics playback.
But you might be asking, why are we doing a whole show about this? As a live producer, once you really learn ATEM, you can feel confident enough to use it on nearly everything. Rentals can be found almost anywhere in the world and at a good price point, so it's easy to just book your ATEM fly pack locally. You can hop city to city for jobs without having to worry about packing a truck or sending freight around the country. Now, if you buy a big, fancy $100,000 or $200,000 switcher for the field, chances are you're also hiring some EICs and drivers to cart that thing all over the country in an OB truck.
We'll touch a little more on the camera control with the ATEM when we talk cameras in our next segment. But before we get into it, check out how we use Clearcom's Agent IC product to communicate with our field producers on New Year's Eve in Times Square. We'll be right back with more on the new URSA broadcast lineup, including the new broadcast camera with fiber back and 2/3 inch sensor. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Ready Take Live, where we continue to talk about Blackmagic Design's new product announcements for live production. We just finished talking about ATEM, and now we're gonna look at the new camera they just released, the URSA Mini Pro broadcast camera. This camera has a 4K 2/3 inch sensor, whereas the one we use here in the studio is a 4.6K Super 35 sensor. Blackmagic opted for a 2/3 inch sensor in their broadcast camera to allow the use of traditional broadcast lenses, which are much easier to focus, zoom, and track for live production. Blackmagic is making a big push for 4K live sports productions, and their CEO, Grant Petty, even showed off the new camera with a giant Fujinon 107 by 4K rated box lens on a big pedestal that would be familiar for any live sports operator. At 107 times length, that Super 35mm sensor would probably have to be at f11 or f16 to have any chance at getting anything in focus. But on the smaller 2/3 inch sensor, the operator and the director alike can be sure that they're going to get the shot. This is the setup that is much more in line with what broadcasters are used to, and operators skilled in working with 2/3 inch chip cameras are plentiful, and nearly every major broadcast facility has a ton of B4 mount lenses. There's one slight problem though. I know Petty and others at Blackmagic Design are hoping that people will use existing expensive 2/3 inch lenses and will see the opportunity to upgrade their cameras as a no-brainer. But what they don't realize is that just because it's a 4K camera doesn't mean it will look better with that HD lens. Those legacy lenses that everyone has been sitting around are rated to provide exceptional clarity and quality for up to HD resolution. That's right, HD. You can get lenses for B4 mounts at pretty reasonable prices, but you have to be careful because you are probably looking at HD lenses, or maybe even worse. The SD rated lenses that at your local rental house will try to sneak in onto your package every now and again, and you gotta watch out for that. Forget all that right now. If you want to get the most out of your 4K camera, you need a 4K lens. Going back to the days where I first started shooting film, and cameras at its core are nothing more than a light-tight box with a shutter in it. The resolution of the sensor is only as good as the resolving power of the lens. So spending buku bucks on a piece of glass will always be the #1 way to improve your image quality, regardless of resolution. Forgetting the color science and processing power of the sensor for a moment, if you have a 4K camera with an HD lens, you're going to be soft. And no, that 2/3 inch sensor won't help you. You might say, so what? I'll just be buying new 4K lenses. Yeah, that's the way to do it. But where you may be comfortable with spending the $6,000 to $10,000 you might know a new B4 lens costs, as soon as you look up 4K B4 lenses, the price jumps to a starting point of $40,000. That's triple an HD lens. And if you have a broadcast camera, chances are you need at least 3 to 5 of them to make a multi-camera kit. That can add up pretty quickly. Check this out. This 13x 4K lens is around $44,000. But this 20x HD lens is only $10,000 for 7 times more length. That 4K lens is definitely worth the money, but will your clients pay the premium on the rental to get the full quality from their 4K kit? Now, to some that doesn't matter. I know there are a ton of you out there who are just going to slap your old Canon or Fuji B4 lens on that new URSA broadcast camera. If the resolution reads 2160p when it hits your record decks, that's all you really care about. That's what you charge the client for, after all. But for those purists like me, Corey, and the rest of us here at LiveX, having an HD lens on a 4K camera is simply unacceptable. I'd rather put up with the challenges of Super 35 sensors than not to be able to afford about $300,000 in new 4K lenses to make a multi-camera URSA broadcast kit. That brings me to my final point. If you work in a large venue where you rely on a SMPTE fiber infrastructure and already own several high-end box lenses, then I think it's worth a shot to go with the URSA broadcast camera. With the fiber back, of course. There's simply no better way to provide power, signal, return, and audio over long distances than through fiber. And my guess is that it will still look good and maybe even better than the old Sony HXC or HDC or Panasonic broadcast cameras that you're currently working with. Also, if you shoot sports where you need the quick, accurate focus and zoom found in 2/3 inch cameras, then by all means, the URSA broadcast camera is the way to go. But if you're like us and don't typically need the extra length, speed, or connectivity of a traditional broadcast camera, then you'll like the look of the lens offerings of the Super 35 URSA Mini Pro 4.6K instead. You compare the Super 35 sensor with Canon's new 18-80 and 70-200 Cineservo lenses for around $5,500 a piece, and those lenses also work with the 1.4x and 2x extenders for Canon and photo lenses, and you can use photo lenses. If you need some longer length for something in particular, you can kit out 100-400, or even better, the new 200-400 f4 photo lens with built-in 1.4x extender for a super long throw. In fact, at around $11,000, you can add the 2x extender to the 200-400 with 1.4x extender, enabled for an equivalent focal length of 1120 millimeters at around f11. which, let's face it, in reality, when you're at 1100 millimeters, f11 is probably what you need when you're zoomed in that much on a Super 35 sensor. The next step up would be to get the Canon 17-120 Cineservo lens, and that lens is about $26,000. And then the next thing up from that would be the 30-300 millimeter cinema lens for around $44,000. Or you can get the almighty lord of Super 35 live production lenses, the Canon Cineservo 50-1000 millimeter f4 to f5.6 for around $70,000. These are all really good quality lenses capable of producing exceptional image quality for 4K and beyond. But don't forget that if you have the full lineup of Canon EF mount still lenses, that can be remotely controlled with the ATEM switcher from the control room. This lens that you're seeing on me right now has earned the nickname of the Magic Cannonball because it looks kind of like an actual cannonball. This lens is an 85mm f1.2 lens that produces insane sharpness and quality as low as f1.2, the fastest and brightest lens you can find for the EF lineup. That means it can get you into trouble if your talent moves. But don't worry, because you have the ATEM ability to control iris and focus directly from the switcher side. Like this. Look, Ma, no hands. No one's operating the camera right now. That's Aubrey controlling the focus. Pretty cool, right? With our VidVantage robotic system and our ATEM camera control, we don't need camera operators in the studio here with me, and it gets a little lonely in here sometimes. But that's why I have my good friend Johnny to keep me company. Bourbon? Anyone? Anyone? You can have multiple instances of ATEM software open at one time to allow multiple operators to control cameras and switch the live show. You can take that a step further with adding the new ATEM camera control unit when it ships in May or June. Right now, we're using the DaVinci Micro panel to control the color on all of our cameras here in the studio, including the Super 35 URSA camera, and it also helps us match the Micro Studio 4K cameras we use for POV wide shots, and even the talent cameras that you see in the back with Aubrey and Nick Nagurka. Yeah, how about that? So, in fact, Aubrey and Nagurka's cameras, as well as the MCR and Studio POVs, are all Micro Studio 4K cameras that can be remotely controlled from ATEM, just like the big URSAs we have on the floor. One last note about the URSA broadcast camera that has me a little worried. When Blackmagic first released the original URSA Mini cameras, there was a serious issue with the sensors. They had horizontal lines in the frame that became known as fixed pattern noise. This was a seriously messed up issue for Blackmagic, and releasing a camera like that was exceptionally bad. And it even got worse when you went to 400 ISO or higher. The current URSA Mini Pro topped out at 1600 ISO, and it has never been good in low light. And that's with a big Super 35 sensor. Now, what do you think happens when I take this size sensor from the Blackmagic URSA Mini Pro 4.6K and I shrink it, that's this one right here, and then I shrink it all the way down to a 2/3 inch? That's a big difference in size. So, if Blackmagic can't make the sensor bright enough with the Super 35 sensor, then what do you think will happen with these new cameras in the 2/3 inch sensor size? What will they look like? It's not all that uncommon for Blackmagic to release footage from its cameras when they're announced, but I didn't see any release of the footage with this announcement, not even a test frame. Before you jump in and go out and buy brand new 10 or 20 URSA broadcast cameras for your facility, make sure you take a look and take it for a walk and see how that dog eats. That's what we've planned on doing, and we'll be sure to report back with a full review of what to expect from this new camera. We got one on pre-order. For those of you on the West Coast, Blackmagic Design announced a demo expo next week that you can attend, so be sure to check it out and take that broadcast camera into a dimly lit area, and please see if they'll let you take some frames and share it with the rest of the world. That would be really great. That's all the time we have on Ready Take Live today. I hope you enjoyed learning all about the new URSA broadcast lineup and the ATEM setups for live production, and I hope you enjoyed this series. We only have one more episode of Ready Take Live to complete our first season, but we have something super special planned for season 2. As always, I'd like to thank Corey Benke and LiveX Studios in Manhattan and everyone in the back working so hard to make this show possible. For Ready Take Live, I'm Rob Baynard, wishing you the best of luck on your next live production. Take care, guys.